Juan Miranda is an independent music and dance researcher. He is currently affiliated to the Santo Domingo Center of Excellence for Latin American Research at the British Museum. The Afro-Peruvian revival, and specifically the Afro-Peruvian step dance Zapateo, lie at the core of his research. Juan's most substantial contribution is studying the potentialities of the relation between dance, semiotics, and engineering. Besides developing a model for Grayman's semiotics for the interaction of Zapateo dancers, Juan has suggested semiotic methods that draw from engineering and philosophy. For more information about this work, I'm going to share some links that you can check for more references about the work that Juan has been doing. But other than that, and after admitting more people in the waiting room, I'm going to give you the chance, Juan, to be the host of this session, and you can please take the space and share with us your conference.
Sure. So you just let me know when I can start.
I just made you the host of this conference, so whenever you feel ready, the space is yours.
Brilliant. So before I start sharing a screen, I would like us to rhythmically wake up. So if you could all kindly unmute your microphones. If you want to share your video, that's great. But if not, at least please unmute your microphone. Absolutely everyone. Everyone that wants to, of course. Yeah, okay, so that's most of the people. I don't know, rhythm, it's as we will find out today, well, as we will talk about today, it's a great organizer. It is this very powerful force, and it's the best thing is to experience it. And I'm really curious about this silly thing that I want to do, but I would like you, I'm going to start clapping a very simple rhythm, and I would like you all to clap with me. Now, what you have to remember is that I am the sinking point. If we start listening to everyone else, maybe we will mess up. So just follow my clap, but don't stop clapping, yeah? So very simple rhythm, just this. Can you clap? I want to hear you. Even louder if you want. Vamos. Ahí. Toma. Por. Lisura. Agua. Very nice. Okay, another one. I love this one because it's such a simple rhythm, and it's a cornerstone of many things. Could you clap this one, please? Ta, 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 ta. Glorious. Okay, so of course this doesn't sound like like the most unified orchestra in the world. Can someone tell me why that is? Just feel free to speak. You don't need to raise your hand or anything. Just speak. No clue about why we don't sound in unison. What do you think it is?
There's a delay.
We hear different.
There's a delay, yeah.
Yeah, this is the weirdest channel in the world. Never in its history has humanity faced this sort of propagation, right, for sound. So this is strange. And then the question is, can we work this around? Can we work around this? So now we're going to try something different. We're going to try question and answer. So I do something and you do exactly the same, yeah? And again, you respond together, yeah? So very simple. Yeah, don't be shy. Nobody can know whose voice it is, so I don't care if you're singing in perfect pitch or not. I really don't care. Again. nice. You make a great choir. So this is cool, you know. I just wanted to try these two schemas, and after my presentation, we can discuss a little bit what is the possible meaning about this. What have you been doing? So now I would kindly ask you to mute your microphones, and now I'm going to start sharing screen, and we will talk about a very powerful Afro-Peruvian figure whose name is Victoria Santa Cruz. So let us all mute our microphones, and I will start with the screen sharing.
Thank you, Juan. Just a small clarification or more of a request. If you have the chance and if you see the waiting room and you can admit more people, that will be awesome. But otherwise, I don't want to distract you. So just in case you see the option somewhere. Okay.
Okay. So then before I share the screen, it's the best thing is to check. There is only one person right now, and I have just admitted the chat. Okay, cool. I will just go on and start. So I think in order to be able to read or to see my own screen, because I get this funny menu on the side, I will leave it like this, if it's okay with all of you. So my topic for today, Victoria Santa Cruz, Ancestral Memory and the Rhythm of Being. Victoria, she was an innovator. There was this very strong movement in Peru that started in the late 1950s. And this movement was seeking to find expressions that were proper of Black people in Peru. Why did they have to search for this? For example, in Brazil, you didn't have this problem. You go to Bahia and you had a strong community of Black people. Some of the great figures of the Afro-Peruvian revival traveled to Bahia and they were fascinated. Wow, you know, I feel right at home. In Peru, maybe the situation is very different because we underwent this process that is called mestizaje, this mixing. And there was mixing in the music as well. So Black people were often sharing musical spaces and dancing spaces with criollos, that is, with people that were mostly associated as Spaniard descendants and residents in Lima, right, in the capital of Peru. So, of course, this creates some sort of an identity crisis because you get this migration of people, Indian people in Peru, or mostly Indian from the Andes, that migrate to the capital in the 1950s, and then it sort of becomes polarized. So you have the criollos and you have the Andean people, and where are Black people in there, you know? Andean people had a very strong sense of identity. They had huaynos, different kinds of music, and so that how to position yourself. What are we in the end? That is the big question. And of course, all over the world, you get this these movements of Black pride, right? In the US, this is a very important influence. So then begins a movement that is called in English Afro-Peruvian revival. And I think that in Spanish, it's, I would like to translate it as renacimiento afro-peruano, a renaissance that leads to great creation. And one of the great creative figures is Victoria Santa Cruz. So, this thing of being and rhythm and so on will become clear soon. Before we move on and we welcome Victoria, I would like to introduce some very, 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 very simple philosophical concepts. I like philosophy. I am not a philosopher, but I've read a bit, and I don't like complicated. I think that abstraction is nice, but philosophy is abstraction that is useful for life. That is the purpose. It is not something that is far away from us. So then we have two very important pairs. One is identity and difference. We understand identity is sameness, right? When we say, when I am the same as myself, I cannot be something other than what I am, right? And of course, I can say, well, me and Jorge and Subhashini and Marija and all of you, we're different people. So there is the notion of difference. And these two very simple notions are applied to everything in life, right? A book is different from a table. So we have this concept. We have tricky aspects of identity because one is, was baby Juan the same as the Juan that is speaking today? You know, am I the same person as I was 5 years ago? It's you have this thing of identity over time is a fascinating philosophical subject. Another very related pair is the one and the many. And well, the one, you know, Parmenides just used to say, an ancient Greek, being is. That's the only thing you can say. Movement, variation, all that, it's just an illusion. But the truth is that being is and everything is one. And that's the only thing, the only meaningful thing that you can say. He had an oppositor, Heraclitus, that said, no, of course, there exist the many. We have plurality. We had a lot of things. I don't know if as dancers or people experienced with dance, you've heard about Zeno's paradoxes, but these paradoxes were designed to show that movement is an illusion, that it actually cannot be the case. So here we have two opposing pairs, very important, identity and difference, which can be translated into anthropology as self and other, for example, and the one and the many standing for diversity. So let us move on to what is ancestral memory then? Why is this included in the title? I am sure that you find this concept in many cultures, but Victoria Santa Cruz phrased it this way. And I found this out thanks to an excellent book called Black Rhythms of Peru, written by Heidi Caroline Feldman. And I believe she is with us today. So it's a great pleasure that Heidi's here. Ancestral memory. Suddenly, Nicomé de Santa Cruz, the brother of Victoria, says, I am going to revive the Landó. And he comes up with a theory about how the Landó actually comes from the Lundu, from Angola, and this is a great dance and so on. But wait a minute, we don't have any choreography for the Landó. How are we going to dance this thing? Okay, so then Victoria says, no problem, bro. I will come to the rescue, no problem, because I know how the movement of the Landó has to be. How do I know? A possible question, Victoria, are you going to look at African choreography today and derive from there your movements? And her reply will be no, because Africa has already been colonized, and what we have a legacy from Africa, but that legacy is not in this world today. This legacy is in the cosmos. Why? Because Africans have worked with rhythm for centuries, millennia, right? So it is lying there, and I am going to connect with this essence. And from this essence, I will find what the choreography for the Landó should be. So this sounds like a really crazy idea. It's like, this woman is crazy. You cannot take such a claim seriously. This goes against science and blah, blah, blah. But this is not exclusive to Victoria. Coromundus, for those of you who are fellow Coromundians, had a brilliant professor. And this professor was Andre Grau. She did field work for 10 years with the Tiwis, Aborigines, a tribe from Australia. And she would explain how in the Tiwis they were really patient to teach each other the dances, to transmit the dances from generation to generation. For them, dance was a codification system, and the whole kinship, like this is my brother, here is my mom, here is my dad, here is the wife of, so it was like the body was some sort of genealogical tree. But there was a different kind of dance, which was supposed to be your own animal. So maybe Juan, my animal is a lizard. Maybe Jorge's animal is a lion. Maybe someone else's animal is a butterfly. And since that animal is yours and only yours, it was expected that you quickly would connect with this animal and discover how it moves and how you ought to move according to it, right? And a dear friend that is doing research in Afro-Ecuadorian music told me, like a singer told to her, yeah, I dreamt this song. You know, it just came to me. It seems to have been somewhere, and it was like revealed to me. And so I'm sure, and I'm curious about this, maybe you have had experience with this yourselves, you have experienced this yourself, and this is very compatible with what Victoria phrases as ancestral memory. So now I'm talking about a woman which you don't even know, and I think that it would be better to solve that. And so let us see who Victoria is and why she is such a powerful presence. Okay, I'm going to admit someone, and we start.
Tenía 7 años apenas 7 años. ¿Qué 7 años? No llegaba a 5 siquiera. De pronto unas voces en la calle me gritaron: ¡Negra! 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 ¿Soy acaso negra?, me dije. ¡Sí! ¿Qué cosa es ser negra? ¡Negra! Yo no sabía la triste verdad que aquello escondía. ¡Negra! Y me sentí negra. ¡Negra! Como ellos decían. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Como ellos querían. ¡Negra! Yo odié mis cabellos y mis labios gruesos y miré apenada mi carne tostada y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. ¡Negra! 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 Y pasaba el tiempo y siempre amargada seguía llevando a mi espalda mi pesada carga. ¡Y cómo pesaba! Me alacié el cabello, me polvé la cara, y entre mis entrañas siempre resonaba la misma palabra: ¡Negra! 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 Hasta que un día que retrocedía y que iba a caer. ¡Negra! 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 ¿Qué? ¿Y qué? ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! Y hoy en adelante no quiero laciar mi cabello. ¡No quiero! Y voy a reírme de aquellos que por evitar, según ellos, que por evitarnos algún sinsabor, llaman a los negros gente de color. ¿Y de qué color? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué lindo suena? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué ritmo tiene? ¡Negro, negro, 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 negro! Al fin comprendí. ¡Al fin! Ya no retrocedo. ¡Al fin! Y avanzo segura. ¡Al fin! Avanzo y espero. ¡Al fin! Y bendigo al cielo porque quito Dios que negro trabaje fuese mi color y ya comprendí. ¡Al fin! Ya tengo la llave. Negro, 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 negro.
And that, my dear friends, is Victoria Santa Cruz. So what can I say? She's just, I don't know what metaphor, if I had to choose an animal for her, I don't know, a lioness, a panther, she's just this gigantic figure, right? And this gigantic figure, what did she do in the end? She did it not only choreograph the Landau, but she created the group Teatro y Danzas Negras del Perú, so a dance theater group for Black people. Then she went on to lead the folkloric, the Peruvian folkloric group, where you had dances from the Andes, from the jungle, from Afro-Peruvians, from Criollo style. So she has a very interesting evolution process, you can say, discovery process. So let us start from the beginning then. Genesis, rhythm, organizer, the first cause. Let us see what Victoria has to say. Everything is continuously on the making, being transformed. In this becoming, there is a rhythm. Rhythm, the eternal organizer, cause and consequence of the superior order, has the capacity to establish a relationship between opposing forces, indispensable components of all unity. So if we stop here, right? Okay, we know as dancers, we can think, or as musicians, yeah, everything is being transformed, things are in the making. Okay, and so there is a rhythm in this becoming, and rhythm comes to be for Victoria, the organizer. And something very important for her is this polarity, active, passive, the idea that polarity implies tension, precise tension. There is also a transformation of the poles into unity. And the nice thing with rhythm is that it allows us to integrate units of units. If you think about an orchestra, the trumpets are a unit, the violins are another one, right? And the great orchestra conductor is, you know, making everything happen. So unity or rhythm allows this, allows things to be integrated one within the other. And that's where the power of rhythm is. So if we move on, the purpose of this presentation, I have said the philosophy of Victoria Santa Cruz, so then we need to contrast her with other philosophies. So now Victoria is going to dance with Plato. Let us first say, let us see what Victoria has to say about action, and then we will take on Plato. So Victoria says, you need commitment to discover action. Action is not just doing. Doing is something else, right? Action is in the present. It implies renewal, flow, this question-answer dynamic that we had, right? Reaction is different from action. It is, we react when we tend to project a past onto the future, right? Something happens and based on what happened, we just react. We are not in control of this doing, right? So action implies this connection with doing that comes from myself. Reaction instead, we react by habit, by association, and reaction implies division. It is often it is expressed as the isolated intellect in thinking for the sake of thinking. Reaction is expressed in the division of human being, of the humankind. So Victoria says, the secret is not to exit, but to enter. True victories are internal. Victoria is also, as you've seen from this powerful poem, Me gritaron negra, they yelled black at me. She says, well, there is an obstacle. There is always obstacle. But the greatest obstacle, the enemy, lives at home. So we have to enter our house, our home. How do we enter? There is this law of connection. For her, believing, the idea of believing is what allows creation. And once you create, you reinforce your believing, right? Then this has a parallel in Western philosophy as well, the idea of knowing and being. You know what is the case, right? You want to know how things are. So for her, the parallel is between creation and belief. Life is a struggle, and the word for this in Spanish is beautiful, lucha. Life in Latin America is a lucha. You have to luchar, you have to struggle in order to survive, right? And Victoria had to struggle against against racism. So there is this battlefield that is everyday life. And you have the fact that for her, doing comes from the inner self, from the interior of oneself towards the exterior, right? And this action is organic. You cannot measure action and the quality of action just using, I don't know, objective science or using a framework that is external to the action process itself. And in this, for example, we have another philosopher which we can also discuss, but this is Berson's thought. Berson is very clear about this. So an analysis for Victoria starts when action ceases. We need to know the flavor of action. In Peru, we have delicious food. We've become sort of renowned for that, and flavor, eating, is very important. Think about flavor. Having something in your mouth is already having it in you. It is about to become part of your body. So the flavor of action, this capacity of sensing, of enjoying deeply, it is different from contemplating from afar, from looking things at a distance, which is often a European or Western paradigm, right? Contemplation without touching. No, flavor is when you swallow, when you chew, when you feel it, right? And well, I will come now. Let us come to Plato, and then we will talk about memory. So here we have two figures. Let us start with the simplest one, which is the donut on the right. Why a donut? Well, a donut, what does that have to do with Victoria Santa Cruz? Because it's like, it seems like a paradox what Victoria is saying. You need to connect with yourself in order to project yourself outwards. And the donut is precisely this figure. When you go in, you end up going out, right? It is in this movement that you become part of the world. Today, I think that many capitalistic values say, go in, love yourself, go in, and the rest will be beautiful, and life will be the best, and you will love, but just, you know, first yourself, but then you will also love others. No, Victoria said, no, you go in to connect with yourself and to project yourself outwards through action. It's a very different way of thinking. What does that have to do with Plato? Okay, we have the famous the allegory of the cave, right? So these people are in a cave, they're sitting down, they're handcuffed, and they can't turn their heads, they can only look at the wall that you see there with these funny figures. And you see these funny figures because you have a light shining from behind. And the light shines upon figures that are from the outer world, right? So you have animals and people moving by, and the only thing they manage to see are the shadows. So these people think that shadows is the only thing there is. And then Plato says, okay, someone uncuffs one of the prisoners and he can finally move his hands. So he's uncuffed and he says, oh, I can move? Oh, I can move my head. Oh, I can go in a steep way out of the cave. And once he is in the cave, he contemplates the outer world. He says, my God, this is wonderful. And then Plato doesn't say, stay outside the cave and be yourself and enjoy. No, that person has to return inside the cave and try to free the others. So from there is a moment that I think that is key, that you recognize in Western philosophical thought, and you will recognize in other cultures as well. This moment is called insight. It is the moment where you search, where you suddenly have a deep discovery, and from this you act. Right? It is not the same as living everyday life without thinking about what you're doing. So for Victoria, the idea of qualities of action, levels of action, intuition, tuning, sensing is very important. And in this sense, for her, arts are not an end in itself. Victoria is deeply opposed to the idea of art for art's sake, right? Something that was very fashionable in the Romantic period in Western culture, for example, in Oscar Wilde or, you know, other poets and artists. So for her, art is a medium. And why is it a medium? Well, because the artist has to be sensible, has to discover qualities of action, qualities of sensation. You need to recognize things, and you need to find ways of creating out of these insights that you've had. And it's not just creating, oh, I am the isolated artist that is going to express myself. No, creation means also tuning to your world. So in this sense, arts is an integral training for all of this. Plato thought this as well. The idea of arts as the practice of human values is also present in Greek culture and probably in many other ancient cultures. Maybe some of you in the questions will like to have a comment about this. So now let us put Victoria to dance with one of the badasses of Western philosophy. And this badass, pardon my French, is called Descartes, right? Why is this guy? He's really one of the... He's a mighty figure. His philosophy is not very difficult to read, but he just puts the whole of philosophy, he gives it a turn. Why? Because he is very concerned with truth. He wants to know what exists, what is for real, you know? What is this one truth that I can discover, which I cannot have any doubt about? I need to find a certainty. I need an absolute certainty. Once I have this first certainty, I will build a system upon it, and my system will lead us always to truth. And for him, this primary truth is, I think, therefore I am, right? So, of course, it is me that is trying to find this truth. It is me that is interrogating himself about being and so on. So this is the primary truth. And this means that, okay, I think, but I don't know if you think. I feel, I don't know if you feel. So this leads to a very strong division between self and other. I cannot have any certainty of the existence of anything or anyone else but myself. And this is reflected in colonization process, for example, in Latin America, right? And there is another very important division that he brings on, but that had existed from before, and this is the body-mind division, right? Body is a substance, it is one thing, the soul or the mind is a substance, is a different thing. The mind is the primary substance, and that which leads our existence. Descartes has also interesting thoughts about this. We will not go there, but it creates big problems for philosophy. And the task of many other philosophers that came after him was to reply to this challenge. What does Victoria say instead? Victoria says the physical body, because it is penetrated by a superior force, does not belong simply to the physical terrestrial plane. So it is more than a piece of meat. When it attunes by means of a special attitude of the human being towards life, progressively the body acquires subtle qualities until it becomes our instrument, the instrument of the human being. Aristotle said something beautiful. For him, the human body, when the human dies, is no longer the human body. It stops being, you know. So, and for Victoria, she would say the same. Our body is an animated body. It is a body that is subject to tuning itself, to adjusting itself, to discovering things. It is an active body, a sensible body, right? That allows itself to vibrate and to be penetrated, and that is capable of feeling the flavor of action. Now, I am going to do one last philosophical comparison, and this is the cool battle between Victoria Santa Cruz and Spinoza. And this guy, you see him all cute and so on, but he was cursed by the Jew community in Amsterdam 1,000 times. And I literally mean cursed. He was expelled from the community because he was also very radical in a sense. And there are a lot of parallels between Victoria Santa Cruz and Spinoza's thought. Victoria Santa Cruz says rhythm, the consequence and cause of the superior order. Spinoza will say, give it the name that you may, call it substance, call it God, call it nature, but this thing has to be the cause of its own existence. If not, if something is always caused by something else, we will have an infinite regress. So there has to be something that is underlying everything that is the cause of itself. Victoria will say, action, reaction, two very different things, and it is towards action that we have to aim, through inner connection, through commitment and sensibility. And Spinoza gives humanity this beautiful gift, and it is the distinction between action and affect. Affect, what is an affect? An affect is something that operates, that acts upon us. We are acted upon. An affect, for example, now you're kind of listening to me, so you can say that my words are acting upon you. A much more powerful affect is the coronavirus situation affecting our work, our everyday life. It is an affect. We have no control over it. It is acting upon us. So then, but Spinoza says, well, what is the goal of human life? How should we live? The way we should live is we should become as perfect as we can. And perfection means power of action. We have to learn to dance with affects. We have to learn to twist them and turn them around, to make them part of ourselves, and for these affects to give us power of action. And Victoria would clap hands. She would say, exactly, that's what we have to do. And we need tuning for this. We need sensibility. But a great difference between the two is that Spinoza will say the vehicle to do this, the fundamental vehicle for me in order to reverse this, will be reason. We need to think. Victoria will say, no. It is the body, not as a piece of meat or just that moves just because, but a sensible, intelligent body. Our experience itself should be what grounds our development and our mastery of affects. So now let us go to the feedback loop. I hope you're able to see this figure. I'm only able to see it partially. So I'm going to move it like that. Okay, so I'm going to finish very soon. Is this just, why have we believed about that the arts can actually help us in life? Well, this is a diagram. I would ask you to Google this afterwards and remember the name, the feedback loop. This is a cornerstone of engineering, and I haven't heard its mentioned even once in the social sciences. And for me, this is really sad because this is very powerful knowledge. So we have an intent. We want to do something. We first say, okay, I give it a try. You act, right? And then the situation will determine if my action is effective or not. I sense and I perceive, does this action work or doesn't it? I compare, I have a comparison. And then I say, yeah, it worked, so I continue doing the same, right? Or maybe I say, no, it didn't quite work, I have to do something else. This is, for example, in riding a bike, you find this, oh no, you know, I don't have any balance, I need to balance again. I need to move a little bit towards this. This is the principle of how we dance. This is present in dance, in musicking. Oh no, my violin, it is not fine-tuned right now. I am not quite in rhythm when playing the drum right now. I need this tuning. My morals, yes or no, is my action something good, and is this action favoring life or not? Have I done right or wrong? It is really deeply embedded us, this simple, very simple feedback loop. And that circle that you see surrounding all of our processes is memory. Of course, our self-adjustment, our sensing, our perception, our intents are all shaped by memory, by our faculty of accumulating knowledge and experience. So I will, this slide, we don't have much time because I want to hear you and I want questions. But this slide is just explaining how some basic features of musicking can be abstracted to see why this sort of tuning that we need in arts is also necessary in daily life. So let us now round up with some key elements from Victoria's thought. Ancestral memory. If you want, you can take it as discourse and say, I don't need to believe in it, but it had a very powerful impact among Afro-Peruvians and Black pride. And it is some sort of metaphysical principle where knowledge is accumulated in the cosmos. It doesn't pre-exist or it doesn't exist eternally. It is built and stored. Rhythm, organization, and unity. And this abstraction is wonderful for us who have experience in being human beings or artists, right? And rhythm, music is based on consonance, dissonance, right? Dance, tension, relaxation. So we have the polarities that are present in everyday life, right? And we have, for Victoria, action has to lead to thought. And our action is more powerful if it has an inner force. First, you connect inwards and then you project outwards. And the center of our doing has to be what Aristoteles would say the flourishing, the eudaimonia, and for Victoria she calls it bienestar, our well-being, our health. And in the end, the thing is to become unity. This is what we should strive at. We should question ourselves if we are managing or not. And finally, a provocative thought, and I am ready to argue for this, Victoria would say it's about reunion, regathering, unity, not healing, not sanación, no. And I know that there are some very strong advocates for sanación and healing and so on, and I can explain the difference between those two if there was a question about it. And I can only say thank you very much, Jorge and Francisco and the whole team. I hope that you get something from this.
Juan, thank you so very much for this wonderful, lively, and clear presentation. I'm very sure that we all enjoyed it. And now for our participants, I want to say that we are gonna have between 15 and 20 minutes to have a Q&A session with Juan. So if you wanna benefit from that option and just ask anything about this presentation, to Juan, please make sure to use the option that we have of raise your hand, which is the button that you're gonna find at the very end of the list of participants, or you can also type your question in the comments box. So I think as a way to break the ice, I'm gonna be the first one asking because I kept thinking about something that I would love to know a little bit more. And then just for the rest of the participants, just feel free to keep raising your hands or sending your messages and we will read them afterwards. But Juan, I wanted to know about the figure herself, because what I kept thinking while you were presenting is that it is a true decolonial or post-colonial effort what you're doing. I feel like in a lot of the academic context of Latin America, we are still very much centered around European authors, which is not something bad at all. But the only moment when this gets problematic for me is when we forget or we just fully overlook authors, figures, and icons that we do have in our own places. So I was wondering, how do you think and how have you found the relevance, the preeminence, or the value that this figure has in Peru or in Latin America in general during these times? Do you think that this figure is valued within the Afro-Peruvian community and Peru at large?
Well, yes, Victoria Santa Cruz is certainly very much valued. And I think that many people are also using, there's a, how did you just play like that? You know, a drummer, how did you do that? Oh, it's my ancestral memory. I don't know if they are conscious that they got that from Victoria, but that's their kind of reply, right? So you feel her presence in different things. And the fact is that Victoria, I haven't mentioned this, she also developed a method for the development of inner rhythm. So my research is ongoing, really, because I would like to find her students and understand how this method worked. You know, what did she do to breed this incredible generation of dancers? So I would say that she's a powerful figure, and I have, with pleasure, seen that, for example, in Brazil, they have done a representation of this poem, Me gritaron negra, they yelled black at me, in Portuguese, you know. So I think that there is a certain awareness of her presence. However, for example, in June is the month where you celebrate Afro-Peruvian culture, and I didn't see any straight or any events organized to honor her, to discuss her thoughts. So that was part of my motivation in doing this talk. And about the decolonial, post-colonial, it's really tricky. I wouldn't like to place myself there. I have to confess that I joined a group, a Latin American group on Facebook in decoloniality, and I ended up quitting because I just thought that it was utterly absurd, the reaction of certain people that is supposed to be, you know, the liberators of the continent. So that's just a little parenthesis.
Great clarification. And for the rest of our participants, I wanted to tell you that I have sent over the chat box the link so that people, whomever wants to know a little bit more about the work that Juan is doing, now you can follow that link. But we already have a question that has been submitted in here, so I'm going to read it out loud so that hopefully Juan can give us his perspective. Hector Cornejo has said, could you please compare Victoria with Leibniz on the issue of organization unity? That is hyphen, so organization unity is hyphen.
Yes, Hector is a very dear friend of mine, and that's a brilliant question, because Leibniz has a very important concept, which you surely find in other cultures as well. And this concept is harmony. And harmony says, harmony is unity within diversity, right? Or diversity compensated by unity. And I think that there is much affinity between Victoria and Leibniz, but Leibniz had a very tricky claim from his concept. And his claim is that this is the best of all possible worlds, because it is the most harmonious. You have to have pain and suffering in order to have diversity. These are not wanted. Nobody wants it. And God, Leibniz says God doesn't want that either. But you know, it's part of diversity. So Victoria would not commit to this claim. Victoria doesn't make any claims about there being a God or the fact that suffering has to be the way it is. But what Victoria, Leibniz was a brilliant mathematician, and he wants to optimize. So from Leibniz's perspective, he will say, this is the best possible world. Why? Because maximum diversity, maximum unity within that diversity. Victoria would say, what we care about is to shape ourselves in order to become unity. This is our struggle. So she puts a struggle upon us. Unity is the sign of a good life. But she won't make any claims, for example, about how diverse the universe has to be, or life has to be. She will not say this is the best of all possible worlds. She will say, life is tough, baby. You have to fight for what you want to get, you know, and you have to be strong inside in order to do that.
Great, thanks for that response, Juan. Now we're gonna go ahead with Francisco, who has a question. Please, Francisco.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you very much, Juan. I'm delighted. I think it was a brilliant presentation. So really appreciate that you share your knowledge with us. I don't know, this is not really a proper question, but I was just thinking on when you show us the input and output information or informatics flow, I couldn't stop thinking in Deleuze's model of difference and repetition. Resonates a lot with what you are saying as well, and deeply, of course, entangled with the whole topic of rhythm. So yeah, how we resonate and being attuned with our environment, how we can correct some things that we are doing and take other decisions and things like that. But I am also like would like to suggest you to maybe to and you can take the opportunity now, because part of the participant is one of the participants is Elon Morris. He has and you draw a lot of parallels as well with his work, especially in when talking about how rhythms work, how rhythms operate, and what rhythms do to life. So yeah, just to thank you again. It was a real pleasure to listen to you, and it was an amazing presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco. If I can allow a brief comment. Deleuze is really, really complex. I've touched some of his philosophy. He has this concept of rhizome, right, which is very popular. And also I've seen that when people want to talk, want to feel deep, they say it's a rhizomatic connection. There is a difference between the diagram that I presented and the rhizome. Rhizome is, for example, when you say, let us establish categories, right? You have students, you have good students, you have bad students. You have bad students who are poor, you have bad students who are rich. You have good students who are very intelligent, so you just start in a tree. You can have a tree. You build your tree of classification. From what I understand, rhizome means doing this weird operation of connecting a node that is far away with another node anywhere in the tree, where you're just bypassing any hierarchies. This is really cool, and of course we do that. But the feedback loop is a different thing. The feedback loop is immediately accessible. You know, I do EO, you have to see when you come in with your EO. Did I come in the right time? Juan is doing EO, he's not doing EO. So you need to tune, you know? So it is this operation of comparison that is coming back and back again. And this is present in our life. And of course, this is present in robots as well, right? And in animals. So it's a principle of life. So that's an important difference between the two. I will totally take your suggestion, and I will check Elon Morris's work. I would very much like to learn. Thank you.
Yeah, he already raised his hand, so you will probably listen to him. Just to clarify,
Okay. Cool.
I was
Great.
just mentioning more the work on difference and repetition,
okay.
which you might want to have a look, which is amazing. But okay, I will stop talking now, and please.
So I think for the sake of maybe completing this section of questions, I will ask Elon Morris to maybe share his reaction about this, and then we can pass with Sumeda.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Really fascinating and exciting to hear the links made with my work. I'd be really interested if just in a bit of short time you've got, or maybe in the future, to hear a bit more about the formation of Victoria's own ideas. So like, where did these ideas of rhythm and unity and connection come from for her? Was it something that she learnt from within Peru, or something that she looked out to European philosophy for? And also in that regard, I noticed lots of parallels with Grotowski's work, the Polish theatre practitioner, and ideas of self-penetration. Use this word total theatre that came up on one of your slides. So I was just wondering if you're aware of any parallels or links there. If you could talk to that, that would be really interesting.
Thank you very much, because I was unaware about the parallel with Grotowski. What I can tell you is that Victoria says her father was very connected with Western culture. So Victoria, since a very young age, she was reading Shakespeare in English. And I saw a video of her recorded precisely by Heidi Caroline Feldman, and it was an incredible English, to her class. So she clearly had a very strong connection with Western culture, and she listened to Wagner. So she has this very strong European side. I don't know how much she read of philosophy, because in her book, her main book is Rhythm, the Great Organizer. She doesn't quote any philosophers, In this, she's like Wittgenstein. I'm not going to quote anyone. If you read it, if you understand it, nice. If not, I don't care, right? So that's not fully, but that's sort of the attitude, right? So it's really hard to know how deeply involved she was with Western philosophical thought, but she certainly was involved with Western philosophical culture. Or Western artistic culture. What is the case is that her mother was very much into Zamacueca, Marinera Limeña, and proper Peruvian dance and music forms. So Victoria was very acquainted with this, and she associates her connection with the Peruvian side with her mother. So she's the combination of these two things. And one must mention also that her brother was a great poet, a decimista, a very special form of poetry with rhyme. So they were sort of a dynamic duo for some time, and then both incurred into independent projects. So I hope that this answers your question at least partially, but we can continue talking about it. And I do hope that we have a talk some other time, because it would be very interesting to get to know your work.
Thank you both for this wonderful conversation. Now, please, Sameda, you're welcome, and please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I'll just try to see the video works or not. Hi, Juan. It was amazing to hear rhythm is something that I can connect to myself as well. So something that I had probably more of a comment and a question, a curious, out of curiosity rather. The comment would be from the end where you discuss about tuning detail, about this interesting feedback loop. Is something I was wondering, is it something that you are you looking at it from a perspective of a present moment experience, or something that got me thinking about it is the idea of body as archive, what Andre Lepeke says about reenactment of memories, because I see this as a continuation of loops, either linear or layered in a way. So it just got me thinking about that. And something that out of curiosity comes this question is whether Victoria has had a pedagogy that she has created in the context, something that I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking probably. Has she created a pedagogical thing surrounded around, this aspect of theater, whatever? I mean, has she done that in any way, in any movement-based pedagogy? I don't know.
Yes, yes. So I can start with the last of your questions, and the answer to that one is yes. She has the method, and she developed a pedagogy. She was a lecturer at Carnegie Mellon for a number of years, and it is in fact there that they first translated her book for the first edition. What this method is, I am wondering about myself. And the thing is that many of Victoria's students are old, but I've gotten in touch with a couple of them and with the department, our Carnegie Mellon. So I want to get interviews with them, and I want to find out what is that she did, because I'm curious myself. So that's what I can say about her method. About Lepeke, it is an interesting comparison. First of all, I must say that the very nice thing about the feedback loop is that you can make it more complex, and you can make loops over loops over loops and so on, and nesting, right? On the other hand, the loop usually applies to the solution of a present task, right? So I don't know, I am trying to move my arm, and I am walking. I need to walk in a straight line. Try to walk with your eyes closed. That's like an open loop, no feedback. It's really difficult, even though you do it all the time. So you're continuously sending feedback to yourself in order to adjust. Yes, this is a straight line. No, I'm getting twisted. But having said that, of course, this loop can include memory. and memory is a very important aspect. Both memory of what is happening, short-term memory, let us say, of what is happening there and then, and a long-term memory that is shaped by your life experiences, by your bodily configuration from other dances and so on. So there is certainly this layering in the body. So this loop, I believe it's an elementary cognitive system that for me necessarily has to be present in the way we understand things. How this loop is built, that can be really complex. An example in artificial intelligence would be convolutional neural networks, and that looks like a real mess, a model of our brain, right? But the loop yet applies.
Thank you so much for that response. Francisco was encouraging our participants if anybody else has another question. Otherwise, we will. Oh, we do have one more. So please, Rui Bilela, can you go ahead with your question?
Hi. Thank you for the talk, first of all, Juan. My question was, I didn't quite fully understand the role of the Western philosophy in your research. You kept creating these dichotomies between her and many other names. And I don't understand what's the need, why you do that. Why the study does not just dive into her work. And I wanted to more precisely ask, is it part of your methodology to create these dichotomies? What's the intention behind, and what's the plus really?
Yes, I can reply, and it is a very pertinent question. Some people in the Peruvian community regard Victoria Santa Cruz as a philosopher. For me, this is a controversial claim. I would say that her book is philosophical in that it touches fundamental philosophical problems, from metaphysics, that is how things are and the fact that rhythm is a great organizer, to an ethics, how we ought to live, right? Something that I learned the hard way in my incursion in the social sciences is that texts have to come in contact with each other. Victoria Santa Cruz cannot be regarded as a philosopher if her text just exists independent of any other text. So we need to contrast. And I think that one does learn from contrasting things, and that is actually how we produce signification. So it is not just that I dichotomize between Victoria and Spinoza, Victoria and Descartes for fun, but it is interesting to see that some of her concerns and her thoughts match their way of thinking, and in other ways she radically differs. And I do think that this is a useful thing, because by contrast you can sort of see where she is placed. And of course, this is only a first stage of the research, because as I said, I need to understand what is her method, right? Victoria is not all in for thought, so she would not have labeled herself as a philosopher, because she is interested in movement and she is interested in action. So to fully understand what she did or who she is, one would really have to follow the tracks of her students. So this is the exciting part, but it is really challenging because many of them have died. Others, I don't know who they were, so it is a tracking. So that would be the other part that would complement. And the other thing that I can say as a reply to your intervention is that Rhythm, the Great Organizer, is quite an obscure book. And a couple of intellectuals commented on it in the prologue, in the introduction. And they call her, for example, one of them says that Victoria is a Platonist. And okay, what basis does he have to say that she is a Platonist? Because Plato thought that rhythm is the organizer of movement. But this is not enough. It is not. We can go deeper into this comparison. Is she? In what sense is she this? Can she be, put within the context of Western thought or not? So and I, as a practice of life, I believe that we need to come to understand what our fundamental differences are if we are to coexist. If not, it's just a bubble floating somewhere.
What strikes me there is there was irritated me a little Western based, and other cultures are not
Raúl,
interested
sorry. Can you repeat? There was a problem with your connection, please.
Yes. I am thinking that philosophy itself and the term philosopher and the term artist are pretty much connected to Western culture, and other cultures outside of the Western world do not
I'm sorry, I will have to interrupt you. Rui, I think we're having a problem of connection with your internet. So I will suggest that you will turn off your camera because there's a big lag that it's preventing us from understanding your audio. So if you could please turn off your camera and then give the feedback to Juan so that he can respond to you, that would be excellent. And then I just want to say that we have one more question, will be the last one by Tristan.
Other
Oh, I think his internet got so bad that he got disconnected. Sorry about that.
Rui, there you are. So what Jorge was telling you is please leave your camera off and repeat what you were saying. Be so kind, because we lost it all. Yeah.
Yes. Is it any better now, though?
Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I was just thinking that I was saying that the figures of philosopher and artist are pretty much connected to Western, to the Western world and other cultures. They are not bothered at all with such figures. So that was just a thought. I don't know what's happening in Peru. I don't know if the figure of the philosopher is relevant for Peru at all. So if we go back, if we trace back the birth of philosophy, to what extent does it matter to bring it to your study? You know, that was my thought.
Yes, I think it is an important question that you raise, because Western culture did have a huge impact in Peru, and we operate with categories of Western thought. They are present and they are part of our thought. They are not exterior to us, they are within us. So in this sense, for example, Victoria is very clear. She has a very clear rejection against intellectualism, thinking for the sake of thinking. She is against, and she writes this, she is against art for art's sake. So she operates with these categories and she says, I do not stand for this. Art is a medium. So then she is in this doing, in so using these categories, which we think of as Western, she is positioning herself within there. She's jumping in, you know, ready to struggle. So then we need to clarify what her position is within this. So yes, Western thought, Western categories, yeah, but they are part of Peruvian categories too. Identity is a word in Spanish, identidad, filosofía, arte. This is part of who we are. So it is very pertinent, therefore, to see where she stands. And if people are going to go on saying, yeah, Victoria Santa Cruz is a philosopher, let us test the claim. If she is, in what sense is she and what is her thought? So that would be my reply.
Thank you, Juan.
Of course, an encouragement. Just if someone wants to contrast her with the Mayas, the Incas, the Tiwis, please go on. Wonderful, wonderful. That would be what I would say.
Okay, so for all of our 35 participants, we are about to finish Juan's presentation, but before that, we have one last question from Tristan Brown. Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Hi, hello. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me ask my question. I enjoyed your presentation, and I guess I'll qualify my question by letting you know I'm a master's student and I'm studying Afro dance in Brazil on the southern coast of Brazil. And I guess you mentioned Afro Pride and, you know, kind of what Cruz was to Afro-Peruvian community and things like that. And so I was curious when you said that Cruz's philosophy focuses on reunion and not necessarily on healing. And I was curious because in Brazil, I know that for example, the dance company that I'm working with, a lot of what the company is for the community is a way to kind of reclaim space and kind of create a memory that is no longer invisibilized in a way. And so my curiosity, I know you had a time constraint in doing your presentation and everything, but my curiosity is that, is it coming from a strictly historical context of just looking at her work? Or are you trying to bring it back to like the present and see like, is this a felt connection among Afro-Peruvians today?
I am hoping to do both of those things, and thank you for a very interesting question. So if I understand correctly, you're a little bit curious about the relationship, or like why not healing, right? And why reunion? Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, yes, it's that, and it's also just
Yes.
kind of like I said, just looking at which way you're coming at this, as far, because I mean, like I said, you looked at the philosophy aspect of her work, but like as far as looking at the, I guess, action and reaction, just the context of how she created her work and what that means for the Afro-Peruvian people today and like then. And things like
yes. So it's a very question. My perception, and this is my perception about the Afro-Peruvian community today, there is a lot of tendency towards performance, towards showmanship. You know, you want to do cool shows, you want to recreate. There is a lot of fusion going on, being creative, doing different things, bottles, blah blah. But Victoria was really pissed at this. She left Peru because she was upset. Victoria cares about essence. And the question is, how can we build essence? What would this essence be? How did she construe essence herself? And so first diving into her book is a starting point to understand what this essence was for her. Now, I must say that healing is not an accurate translation of the Spanish word, which I am reading very much now, that is called sanación, right? Sanar is to heal. But these discourses on sanación, for me, most of them fall into auto-compassion, right? Oh, I need to heal because, you know, my life is so hard and blah, blah. For me, in this way, you will always be in a deficit. Victoria is against this. She will say, baby, get over it. The enemy lives at home. Don't destroy the enemy. Deal with it. Seduce it. Turn it around and create. Creation is the maximum power of action. And this is a very different attitude from just feeling like, I need to heal. Let us all get together to heal and to feel better about our lives. This is not the spirit. And certainly, this is not the spirit in Brazil. I know that healing in the Afro-Brazilian context can be a very powerful thing. So it is very nice that you bring that up. And I hope that I replied to your question.
Juan, thank you so much for this response and also for your presentation in general. I think we are very lucky to have you here. I will invite you to stay over if you can, because we are about to pass to the next presentation by Subhash Nigoda. But otherwise, we just want to thank you again and hope to see you in the next days of this cycle as well. Do you want to close with any comment to the participants?
Just thank you very much, Jorge, Francisco. Thank you to all of you for being here. From the questions, I got very rich material and like questions that I have to answer myself. I have answered, but nonetheless, the questions remain, you know. So I will take them into account, and it's an exploration process. And I do hope that if anyone is curious about this, we can work together and talk or whatever, collaborate. So thank you very much for this opportunity.